The galaxy was not a peaceful place. For thousands of years, great empires had risen and fallen. Each one thought they would rule forever, yet all were crushed by the same enemy. They were called the Dominion, an alien race that moved like a storm through the stars. Their fleets were endless, their weapons brighter than suns. Entire worlds burned under their shadow. Planets surrendered without firing a single shot. Civilizations that had lasted for centuries were erased in a single day. The Dominion left nothing behind but ruins and fear. They wanted the galaxy to remember only their power. Whenever their ships appeared in the sky, people stopped fighting, stopped resisting. They raised their hands and begged for mercy. But mercy never came. The Dominion grew stronger with every victory. They enslaved the weak, stole the knowledge of the wise, and destroyed anyone who dared to resist. The galaxy belonged to them, or so they believed. Alien rulers whispered in secret about their cruelty. No one dared to oppose them, for if a planet tried to fight, it was wiped clean from the stars. The night sky itself seemed darker because of the Dominion. They had crushed every empire, and nothing seemed strong enough to stop them. In one distant corner of the galaxy, however, a quiet signal moved through space. It was small, almost invisible, a simple transmission carried on forgotten frequencies. The Dominion ignored it, thinking it came from some primitive race too weak to matter. But that signal carried a message that would change everything. On a small planet called Earth, humanity listened. The humans were new to the wider galaxy. Most species barely knew they existed. Some believed they were backward and weak, still tied to their tiny homeworld. But they did not understand. They had no idea what humanity had endured and what humanity had built in the silence. Of their corner of space, the humans watched the rise of the Dominion from afar. They studied every war, every battle, every cruel act. Where other species saw hopelessness, humanity saw strategy. They learned how the Dominion fought, how they thought, and most of all, how they underestimated their enemies. Humanity had learned long ago that survival required strength. On Earth, they had fought endless wars against themselves. They had built machines of destruction. They had faced extinction again and again, and yet they survived. Unlike many peaceful species of the galaxy, humanity was born on a death world. To live on Earth was to fight every day against nature, storms, hunger, and each other. That struggle had shaped them into something different, something dangerous. While the Dominion expanded, humanity built fleets in secret. Not small fleets like the other empires, but warships the size of cities. Engines that could move faster than light. Weapons that could pierce shields. Ships forged not for intimidation, but for total destruction. And unlike the Dominion, humanity did not spread stories about their power. They stayed silent, waiting, preparing. The galaxy believed there was no one left who could resist the Dominion. But the humans knew better. They waited for the moment when the Dominion would come too close. The moment when humanity could strike. In the markets of alien worlds, traders spoke in hushed voices. "Have you heard of the Terrans?" they asked. "No one dares go near their space. Ships disappear there." Some laughed, saying the humans were only rumors. Others whispered that perhaps they were ghosts. But the truth was far greater than any rumor. The Dominion commanders finally noticed the silence around human space. Pirates had vanished. Scouts had never returned. Some of their ships had gone missing near the dark edges of Terran territory. The Dominion dismissed it, saying, "They are nothing. They are weak." They had said the same about every empire they crushed, but this time they were wrong. In the black void beyond human space, the Terran fleet waited, hundreds of massive ships, their hulls dark, their weapons glowing faintly. Each one was a fortress, a beast of steel and fire. Their crews trained for war not in theory, but in blood and history. For humanity had always prepared for the day someone would come to take everything away. The Dominion believed they had conquered the galaxy, but in truth, they had only woken something far worse, something ancient, something patient, something human. And as the first Dominion scout fleet moved toward Earth, the sky above the stars began to burn with light, a warning, a promise, a whisper across the void. "They crushed every empire," the galaxy whispered, "but soon they will face humanity." The Dominion had no rivals, or so they believed. For centuries they moved without fear, without challenge, without pause. But now whispers began to flow across the galaxy like dark rivers. In the markets of neutral planets, Merchants leaned close to one another. "Have you heard?" one would whisper. "Ships vanished near the Terran border," another replied. Some laughed, calling them ghost stories, but others, the older traders, grew silent, for they had seen wreckage, blackened hulls drifting in space with no survivors. Pirates once proud and cruel had disappeared without trace. Entire raiding crews had set course for Terran space and never returned. Even bounty hunters avoided those stars. They said the void there was cursed, yet no one could explain why. In secret chambers, alien leaders grew uneasy. The Dominion had stretched itself thin across too many systems, but still they feared no one. When their scouts reported losses near Terran regions, the high commanders laughed. Primitive humans, they said. A weak world of savages, nothing more. They saw humanity as small, fragile, without history in the stars. They did not know the truth. On Earth, the humans had built silently. While the galaxy thought them backward, they forged weapons in shadows. The Terran fleets were not small patrol ships like the empires before. They were machines of war, vast and unyielding. Each ship bristled with rail cannons that could pierce through shields. Each carried missiles that burned like falling stars. And their captains, hardened by Earth's violent past, did not fear death. They only feared failure. The first encounter came quietly. A Dominion scout fleet of 12 destroyers entered Terran space. They expected no resistance. They expected another easy conquest. Instead, they found silence. Empty stars, dark planets, no signals. They advanced with arrogance. But then, the darkness shifted. From the void emerged a single Terran warship, its hull black as night, its weapons glowing faint red. It did not flee. It did not hide. It simply waited. The Dominion commander laughed. "One ship? That is all they send?" He ordered an attack. Confident victory was already his. The Dominion ships unleashed fire, but their beams vanished into the shields of the Terran vessel. The human ship answered with one strike. A rail cannon fired, faster than sight, louder than thought. A Dominion destroyer split in half, its engines torn apart like paper. Panic rose in the Dominion fleet. They fired again and again, but every shot was deflected, dodged, or absorbed. The Terran ship moved with deadly grace. Its weapons cut through the enemy with precision. One by one, Dominion ships fell silent, their burning wreckage drifting in cold space. When only 2 destroyers remained, the Terran captain sent a message. It was simple, calm, spoken in a language the Dominion did not even understand, but they felt its meaning. It was a warning, a promise of fire. Those last 2 destroyers fled, carrying terror back to their masters, and with them the rumors grew louder. Alien councils began to whisper, "The Terrans have awakened. The humans have fleets. No one returns from their space." The Dominion commanders ignored the fear of lesser races, but their pride began to crack. For the first time in centuries, their fleets had not returned victorious. For the first time, they had lost, and not against a mighty empire, but against humans they had called weak. Still, they told themselves it was nothing, a mistake, a fluke, a chance. They prepared a larger force to march into Terran space. This time, not a scout fleet, but a battle armada. They would crush humanity before anyone else dared to believe the rumors. But far from Dominion eyes, in the silent black of Terran territory, more fleets waited. Not one ship, not 12, hundreds, maybe thousands. Dark silhouettes that could block out entire suns, engines sleeping, weapons armed, crews patient. Humanity had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the conquerors who crushed every empire, and as the Dominion prepared its great strike, the humans prepared their answer. Not in fear, not in silence, but in fire. The Dominion could not accept humiliation. For centuries they had crushed worlds, burned empires, and silenced entire civilizations. Now, their mighty fleets had been defeated by one single Terran warship. The high commanders roared with anger. They declared humanity weak, a mistake of fate, a minor race that would be erased. And so they gathered a force meant to terrify the stars. The Dominion armada stretched across the void, 200 warships strong, battleships as large as cities, carriers filled with fighters, destroyers armed with fire. They believed no power in the galaxy could withstand them. When the armada moved, suns trembled, and planets hid in silence. Their orders were simple: erase the humans, scorch Earth, and make the galaxy forget their name. But the humans were not afraid. On the edges of Terran space, their fleets stirred. The captains knew this day would come. They had trees. Aimed for it, lived for it, built their ships for it. And when the Dominion Armada entered human territory, the Terrans did not run. They waited. The first Dominion ship scanned the void. They saw only darkness, no fleets, no resistance, no planets awake. The commander laughed. See? They hide like children. But then, the stars themselves began to vanish. At first it looked like a shadow, a black curtain sweeping across the sky. But it was not shadow. It was steel. Dozens, then hundreds of Terran warships moved out of the darkness. Their hulls swallowed light. Their engines glowed with silent fury. And together they formed a wall across the stars. The Dominion Armada slowed. For the first time unsure, the lead Dominion battleship sent a signal. Surrender or be destroyed. The Terrans answered with silence. Then a single voice came through, cold and steady. You came to our sky, the Terran captain said. Now you will burn in it. The battle began. The Dominion fired first, beams of energy brighter than dawn, missiles that tore through planets, but the Terran fleets did not break. Their shields shimmered, their weapons awakened, rail cannons thundered, each shot splitting Dominion destroyers like fragile glass. Missiles streaked forward, tearing apart carriers and leaving only fire. The Dominion commanders shouted in disbelief. How can they resist? How can they strike so hard? They had thought the humans weak, yet every Terran ship fought like a monster. They moved in perfect unity, each fleet like a single body. For humanity had learned war in the most brutal way, by fighting each other for centuries. And now, all that blood and history turned against the Dominion. The sky burned. Dominion battleships cracked open, spilling fire into the void. Carriers tried to launch their fighters, but swarms of Terran drones cut them down like insects. Every Dominion sank. Strategy failed, every formation broken. Their weapons that had crushed empires for centuries could not even dent Terran armor. Then came the shock. The humans unleashed weapons no one had seen before, mass drivers that hurled asteroids at impossible speeds, plasma lances that pierced through 3 ships at once, and most terrifying of all, a weapon that bent light itself. Dominion ships fired at targets that were not there, striking only illusions. While Terran warships destroyed them from the shadows, panic spread through the Dominion ranks. They tried to retreat, but the Terran fleet had surrounded them. Engines failed, weapons flickered, commanders screamed. But no mercy came. The humans had waited too long, suffered too much to let their enemies escape. One by one, Dominion warships fell silent. Their armada, once a terror to the stars, now broke apart like sand in the wind. The last surviving battleship tried to flee, but a single Terran dreadnought cut across its path. The Dominion commander stared in horror at the size of the ship. It was larger than anything he had ever seen, a floating fortress, armed with weapons that could shatter moons. It fired once, and the last battleship of the Armada exploded into silence. The galaxy felt the shock. For the first time in memory, the Dominion had lost a full Armada, not to a coalition, not to ancient weapons, but to humanity. The message spread faster than light. The Terrans destroyed them, alien voices whispered. They blocked the stars, they turned the sky into fire. On Earth, the humans did not celebrate. They simply prepared for the next war, for they knew the Dominion would not stop, and humanity would not forgive. The galaxy had seen their power now, but this was only the beginning. The galaxy trembled. The Dominion had suffered what no one thought possible. An entire armada, 200 warships, had been erased by humanity. The news spread like wildfire. In every market, in every council, alien voices whispered the same words. The Terrans are real. The Terrans have fleets. The Terrans cannot be stopped. The Dominion, proud and merciless, could not allow this insult. For centuries they had ruled through fear. If fear was broken, their empire would crumble. So they gathered their greatest force, not 1 armada, not 2, but 5. Over 1,000 ships, battleships the size of cities, dreadnoughts armed with sun killers, carriers filled with endless swarms of fighters. It was the largest war fleet the galaxy had ever seen. They called it the Burning Legion. Its task was simple: destroy humanity, erase Earth, and burn every star they touched. The galaxy held its breath. Would humanity survive this storm? Or would they vanish like every empire before them? The Dominion fleets entered Terran space, their ships stretched across the void like a sea of fire. Alien observers watched from afar, recording every moment. And then, something strange happened. The stars began to vanish again. But this time, it was not a wall of ships. It was something far greater. The Terran High Fleet appeared. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their warships dwarfed even the Dominion's dreadnoughts, each vessel a fortress of steel and flame. They moved in silence, not in panic, but in calm. As though they had been waiting for this very moment, the Dominion commander sneered. "Let them come. Their numbers are few. Their courage will break." But then he saw it. Not hundreds, but thousands of Terran ships emerged from the void, and above them, drifting like giants, were vessels no one had ever imagined. Planet killers, black hulks that carried weapons strong enough to shatter stars. The battle began. The Dominion hurled their fire across the void. Beams of energy lit the darkness, missiles streaked like comets, but the Terrans did not falter. Their shields absorbed the fury, their formations moved like one mind, and then they struck back. Terran rail cannons thundered, each shot tearing holes through Dominion lines. Missiles swarmed like living storms, detonating carriers before their fighters could launch. And then something strange happened. The stars began to vanish again, but this time it was not a wall of ships. It was something far greater. The Terran High Fleet appeared. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their warships dwarfed even the Dominion's dreadnoughts, each vessel a fortress of steel and flame. They moved in silence, not in panic, but in calm, as though they had been waiting for this very moment. The Dominion commander sneered. "Let them come. Their numbers are few. Their courage will break." But then he saw it. Not hundreds, but thousands of Terran ships emerged from the void, and above them, drifting like giants, were vessels no one had ever imagined. Planet killers, black hulks that carried weapons strong enough to shatter stars. The battle began. The Dominion hurled their fire across the void. Beams of energy lit the darkness. Missiles streaked like comets, but the Terrans did not falter. Their shields absorbed the fury. Their formations moved like one mind. And then they struck back. Terran rail cannons thundered, each shot tearing holes through Dominion lines. Missiles swarmed like living storms, detonating carriers before their fighters could launch. And then came the new weapons. Weapons the galaxy had never seen. The first was the Star Lance, a beam of pure plasma that pierced through 3 battleships in a single strike. The second was the Void Net, a field of invisible energy that trapped Dominion fighters, crushing them like insects. And the third was the most terrifying of all, the Gravity Spear, a weapon that bent space itself, dragging ships into a collapse until they were nothing but fragments. The Dominion panicked. For the first time in their history, their greatest weapons were useless. Their dreadnoughts fell, their carriers burned, their swarms vanished. The Burning Legion, once meant to terrify the galaxy, was now being destroyed piece by piece, but the humans did not fight only with weapons, they fought with will. Every captain, every soldier remembered Earth's history. They remembered the wars, the hardships, the centuries of struggle. They were not afraid of death, for to be human was to fight until the last breath. In the heart of the battle, a single Terran dreadnought, Eternal Resolve, pushed deep into enemy lines. It faced 20 Dominion warships at once, yet it did not fall. Its shields burned bright, its cannons roared, its captain's voice steady as stone. The ship became a symbol, a legend. Alien spies whispered its name as though it was alive, and as the Eternal Resolve tore through the Dominion fleet, morale across humanity rose like fire. One by one, Dominion admirals were silenced. Their ships collapsed into fire and debris, their swarms scattered, their formations broken, and when the Terran High Fleet unleashed its final strike, the sky itself burned. Dominion ships exploded in waves of flame. The darkness lit up brighter than suns. When silence finally fell, the Burning Legion was gone. Over 1,000 ships destroyed, the greatest fleet the Dominion had ever built reduced to wreckage. And still the Terran High Fleet stood strong, their ships burned but unbroken, their banners shining against the stars. The galaxy could no longer deny it. Humanity was not just strong, humanity was unstoppable. And the Dominion for the first time felt fear. The Dominion had never known fear. For thousands of years they had ruled through fire, through terror, through silence. Worlds obeyed, empires bent their knees, and no one dared to dream of freedom. But after the Burning Legion fell, everything changed. Across the galaxy, whispers became shouts. The Dominion can be defeated, voices cried. The humans stood against them, and the humans won. For the first time, in living memory, the galaxy felt hope. On a mining world enslaved by Dominion overseers, workers looked to the sky. For years they had been chained, forced to dig until their hands bled. But now they spoke in secret. If the Terrans can fight, why not us? They stole weapons, they struck back, and when Dominion troops came to punish them, Terran signals reached the planet. Within days, a Terran strike team descended, not to conquer but to free. The chains were broken, the miners stood tall, and the story spread like fire. On a desert world, an alien elder told his people, "Once we were warriors, but we bowed to fear." He raised his voice. "No longer. The Terrans remind us who we were, and who we can be again." The tribes rose, hunting Dominion patrols in the sand. And when Terran warships appeared above the skies, the tribes lit fires of victory. The Dominion fled. The galaxy watched as one by one, oppressed species rose up. Worlds that had once surrendered without a fight now shouted for freedom. They carried Terran flags beside their own. They whispered a new name for humanity. Not conquerors, not invaders, but liberators. The Dominion grew desperate. They crushed rebellions with brutal force, but each time they struck, Terran fleets arrived, and where the Dominion brought fire, humanity brought fury. Cities once silent echoed with cheers as Dominion banners burned. In their place, the flag of Earth stood. The Dominion commanders met in secret councils, their voices shook with rage and fear. "If we do not destroy them now, we will lose everything," one admiral cried. "Then send more fleets," another demanded. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. The Terrans were not only fighting with weapons, they were fighting with ideas, and ideas could not be burned. In the void, Terran High Command watched carefully. They did not rush to conquer every world. They chose battles that mattered. They struck where the Dominion was weakest, and every victory inspired 10 more rebellions. Humanity had turned the galaxy itself into a weapon, yet behind Eve, Rye triumph, there was darkness, for the Dominion was wounded, but not dead. They prepared secret weapons in hidden systems, machines that could devour fleets, weapons forged from stolen suns. They whispered of a counterstrike that would end the humans once and for all. But humanity too was changing. Their fleets grew larger, their armies stronger. The galaxy had never seen such unity. Humans fought side by side with freed aliens, once slaves, now soldiers. They carried human rifles, wore human armor, and shouted human war cries. On one battlefield, a young alien soldier raised his voice after a victory. He shouted words in the Terran tongue. "Together we fight, together we live." And the humans around him cheered, for they understood something the Dominion never could. Humanity did not fight to enslave. They fought to survive, and in that survival they gave survival to others. Still, whispers of dread remained. The Dominion would not fall easily. They were ancient, vast, and cruel. And though humanity had broken their fleets, the heart of their empire still burned. The Terran commanders knew the war was far from over, but they also knew one thing with certainty. The galaxy would never again bow in silence. For where once fear ruled, now hope marched, and at the center of it all stood humanity. The species born from a death world, the warriors who turned the sky into fire. The Dominion was bleeding. World after world had risen against them. Fleets had burned, armies had fallen. But even in defeat, they remained ancient, vast, and dangerous. They would not die quietly. They prepared weapons hidden for centuries, engines of destruction forged in secret, machines designed not to conquer, but to annihilate. In a dead star system, the Dominion revealed their first horror, the Eclipse cannons, giant platforms that drew energy from black holes. With a single shot they could erase fleets. The galaxy shuddered when one of these cannons fired, an entire moon shattered into dust. The message was clear. If humanity wanted war, the Dominion would burn everything. But humanity did not back down. When the first Eclipse cannon targeted a Terran fleet, the humans answered with something darker. They unleashed the Leviathans, massive dreadnoughts larger than cities, armed with weapons hidden even from their allies. One Leviathan turned its cannons toward the cannon station. A single volley tore the Eclipse platform apart, ripping the black hole energy into chaos. The sky twisted and stars bent. The Dominion fled in terror as space itself screamed, yet the Dominion was not finished. They unleashed their second weapon, the World Breakers, colossal machines that could shatter a planet's crust. They sent them toward rebellious worlds, promising to reduce them into molten seas. The galaxy cried out in despair. But once again, humanity answered. Terran fleets arrived not with ships alone. They came with weapons no one had ever imagined. The stellar spears, artificial suns contained in warheads. When launched, they ignited with the light of creation itself. One stellar spear struck a world breaker. The explosion lit the void brighter than dawn. The Dominion machine melted into fragments, and the rebels on the planet below wept with joy. The humans had saved them. Still, allies began to whisper, "Are the Terrans saviors, or are they monsters?" For the power humanity unleashed was unlike anything seen before. Entire star systems trembled at their weapons, and though the humans fought to free the oppressed, they carried fire strong enough to end everything. The Dominion commanders grew desperate. They spoke in trembling voices. "These humans are worse than we feared. They do not just fight wars, they erase them." But pride would not allow surrender. They gathered their final weapon, a fleet of doomsday engines, ships with cores made of stolen suns. If destroyed, they would collapse into supernovas, burning everything nearby. The galaxy, prepared for extinction. If the Dominion unleashed these weapons, entire star clusters would die. But humanity was ready. The Terran High Command gave a single order. No more mercy, no more warnings. This ends now. The Terran Leviathans advanced. Their hulls glowed with the fire of war. As the doomsday engines moved into position, humanity struck first. They unleashed a weapon they had sworn never to use, the planet burners. Weapons that could strip the surface of a world bare in seconds. When fired against the doomsday fleet, the result was chaos. The Dominion's stolen suns collapsed, detonating in a storm of fire. Entire fleets vanished, swallowed by their own fury. The galaxy fell silent. For the first time, they had seen the full wrath of humanity. It was not just defense, not just survival, it was vengeance. The Terrans had shown that if pushed too far, they could burn entire systems to ash. Rebellions cheered, worlds celebrated, but in the dark corners of the galaxy, allies whispered in fear. If the Terrans can destroy the Dominion, what will stop them from destroying us? They looked to the stars and saw not just saviors, but gods of fire. And even those freed by humanity began to wonder, had they traded one master for another? Yet the humans did not pause. They knew the war was not finished. The Dominion still held their capital, still ruled from their throne of blood and steel, and humanity had only one answer left. They would take the fight to the very heart of the Empire. The galaxy braced for the final war, for the Terrans had awakened, and their wrath would not stop until the Dominion was no more. The galaxy was holding its breath. The Dominion had ruled for ages, their shadow stretching over countless worlds. But now their fleets were shattered, their armies broken, their weapons destroyed. Only one thing remained, the Dominion capital, a fortress. His world at the heart of their empire. A planet covered in iron, crowned with towers of fire, surrounded by rings of warships. If the capital fell, the Dominion would die. But to reach it was to face death itself. The Terrans did not hesitate. Their fleets gathered, more vast than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dreadnoughts, leviathans, carriers filled with fighters, swarms of drones, every ship forged in silence now burned with purpose, and leading them was the Terran High Fleet, a wall of steel and flame that stretched across the stars. Allies begged for caution. They feared what humanity might unleash, but the Terran commanders gave one answer. This war ends today. The Dominion was ready. Every remaining ship stood guard around their capital. Their orbital rings bristled with cannons, their skies filled with endless fire. They swore that no one would breach their throne. They swore that humanity would die before stepping foot on their world. The battle began with thunder. The Dominion hurled their last strength into the void. Wave after wave of ships charged the Terran fleet, but the humans did not break. Their cannons roared, their missiles streaked, their railguns tore through the enemy like storms. One by one, Dominion fleets shattered. The skies burned red. But then came the Dominion's last secret. They unleashed the Heartfire, a weapon buried within their capital, a star core reactor designed to erupt if defeat was certain. It could wipe out not only humanity, but every nearby system. The Dominion Emperor's voice echoed across the comms. If we fall, the galaxy burns with us. For a moment, fear gripped even the Terrans. If the Heartfire detonated, billions would die, but the humans had prepared for this. The Leviathans advanced, carrying weapons too powerful to describe. The stellar spears ignited once more, and the gravity spears bent space itself. Their goal was not to destroy, but to cut through the layers of defense, to reach the capital before the Heartfire could be triggered. The Eternal Resolve led the charge. The ship that had become a legend, its captain's voice calm, steady, unbroken. "We end this now," he said. The dreadnought tore through enemy lines, its cannons shredding battleships. It was fire-given form, unstoppable, unyielding. The Terran fleets pressed forward, every ship burned, every soldier fought, as if the fate of the galaxy rested on them, and perhaps it did. For if humanity failed, all hope would die with them. At last the Terrans broke through, the capital world stood before them. Its towers glowed, its shields burned bright, but humanity unleashed its final weapon. The Skyfire Array, a network of satellites launched across the system, each carrying beams of unimaginable energy. Together they fired. The Dominion's shields cracked, split, and then collapsed. The Terran ground armies descended. Soldiers in black armor stormed the burning cities. Liberated slaves rose beside them, fighting with Terran weapons. Every street echoed with the sound of rebellion. The Dominion Palace shook as explosions tore through its walls. At last, the Terrans reached the throne. The Dominion Emperor stood defiant, his voice trembling with rage. "You cannot rule the galaxy. You are only a lesser race, born from dirt." The Terran commander stared back. "We do not rule the galaxy," he said. "We free it." The Emperor tried to trigger the Heartfire, but it was too late. Terran strike teams had already destroyed the core. The weapon meant to burn the galaxy was silent. The Dominion's last hope was gone, and with a single shot the war ended. The Emperor fell, his palace burned, his empire shattered. The galaxy shook as the Dominion died. Worlds once enslaved wept in joy, their chains broken forever. But as the smoke cleared, the galaxy looked to humanity. They had destroyed the greatest empire the stars had ever known. They had turned the sky into fire, and though many cheered, others trembled, for they had seen not only humanity's courage, they had seen humanity's wrath. The Terran fleet stood unbroken, their banners blazing across the stars. And every world knew a new truth. They crushed every empire, the galaxy whispered, until humanity came and burned the sky with fire. The war was over, but the legend of humanity had only just begun.